Hello, my name is Eric Olson, Director of HELPS. This brief video is going to talk about the question, how long can I stay in my home without making a payment? Okay. It's a question we get asked a fair amount of time when a senior comes to us and they're not able to make their payment and they want to know what to do. It's kind of hard to give an exact answer. Although I would say this, that it's probably a lot longer than you would imagine. Typically, I've been telling people over the years that it takes at least 1.5 to 2 years before a foreclosure would be concluded. I suppose on some occasions it happens faster, but more often than not it probably happens a lot longer. Okay. There are two types of foreclosures. There's a non-judicial foreclosure, and then there's a judicial foreclosure. And I'll explain the difference. A non-judicial foreclosure is foreclosure that's provided for by the contract where a court is not involved, and sometimes that's called a trust deed foreclosure. The reason for that is it's a somewhat faster process to foreclose on a home, but it gives the person who owes the money some leeway to be able to catch up payments without owing the entire amount of the mortgage. Okay, so that's a trust deed foreclosure. Typically that would take 4 months. They publish it in a newspaper 4 times, and when the foreclosure takes place, it's called a trustee sale. At that point, anyone can purchase the property, but the vast majority of times the bank is the one that purchased the property. They get the property back, and you probably have another maybe 30 days more in the property before they'd get excited about having you leave. Ultimately, if you didn't leave, they'd have to file a forcible entry and detainer. Sometimes they'll offer some cash for keys for you to leave the property clean. You can contact them about that at some point. But there's a long leeway up to the point where a trust deed foreclosure starts, and it could be 6 months, a year, or even longer. Most government programs to modify mortgages are gone, but a lot of banks have programs within the bank to modify loans. For a lot of seniors with lower income, they owe too much on the house where a modification simply doesn't make sense. But you can try. Now, the next type of major foreclosure is a judicial foreclosure. Now, that means that there's a paper filed in court, and a judge makes a finding and orders that a property be sold, usually by a sheriff's sale. And again, it's governed by different rules in different states. Usually after a sheriff's sale, there is a redemption period, a period of time when a person can pay off the mortgage. Now, judicial foreclosures, 5 years or more before, were disfavored because they were a little bit slower process, because the lender couldn't sell, really had no way of selling the home until after the redemption period. No one wanted to buy the home subject to the previous owner coming in and paying off the loan and being able to move back in the house. So they just wanted to get the house back and be able to sell it immediately, and that's what a trust deed foreclosure allowed them to do. So a judicial foreclosure, again, takes maybe a little bit longer. And if there's a sheriff's sale, the question is, during that redemption period, what rights does the person that's living in the home have? Well, technically, the lender could ask them to leave and force them out of the home. As a practical matter, we don't see that happening very often. There's a reason for that. If they're forced to leave, then the property's vacant. It could be subject to vandalism. So if the person's taking somewhat good care of the house, the odds are they're going to be allowed to stay in the home. I would say the odds are greatly in their favor that they'd be allowed to stay in the home without having to make a payment or without being forced out early. Then after the 6 months or whatever the redemption period is, like I said, it depends on different states, then the lender would get a hold of them and ask them to leave. And ultimately, if they refuse to leave, they would file what's called an eviction proceeding or a forcible entry and detain, or FED, to get the person to leave. But usually, that takes quite a while for all those processes to take place. So I have always advised seniors that are on limited income that maybe they want to stay in the property as long as they possibly can to save up money to move. Although I can understand if a senior had a place to move to that was perfect situation for them, they could afford the rent, they might want to move sooner than later just to lock in that opportunity. And some people want to get on with their lives. But the bottom line is, most persons that are being foreclosed have quite a bit longer to stay in a piece of property than they ever imagined. There's no way to give you an exact number. There are exceptions to everything. You can Google your state foreclosure processes, but I'm not going to guarantee you're going to get accurate information. There's a lot of misinformation on the internet. There's the law, and there's times that, and then there's what happens in the real world. So even though the law says that there's a certain time periods when things have to happen, that doesn't mean that they're going to happen on that time period, or that the lender isn't going to stretch things out or delay things. Sometimes people have referred to the current process of foreclosure as proceeding at a glacial speed. One reason is there's been so many foreclosures, the banks just don't have time to deal with them all at once. So keep that in mind. Try to have a positive outlook. And you might be surprised how long you can stay in a home. I just talked to someone a couple months ago, actually emailed me and said, Eric, I'm finally out of the house. It's been 9 years. Okay, that's a long time. But, we hear stories of 3, 4, 5 years fairly regularly. But as a general rule, 1.5 to 2 years, could be as soon as a year. I would have a hard time believing it'd be faster than that, but I imagine there's a few times that it happens faster than that, but not normally. But whatever happens, you're going to have some warning, enough time to get moved, and hope that helps. My name's Eric Olson. I'm Director of HELPS. We represent seniors and disabled persons who owe debt they can't afford to pay in order to stop collector harassment. We don't turn anyone away that needs our help. Look at some more videos on our YouTube channel or visit our website, www.helpsishere.org. If you're a senior disabled person with debt you can't afford to pay, you don't have to pay it, and we can protect you from collector harassment. And we also like to educate seniors and others on how they can maintain their financial independence. You have a great day.